Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday evening to you all. Hope you guys have had a great Saturday and a great weekend so far out there as we're working our way through it. I got you a big update on what is still Tropical Storm Fiona. It's starting to get a better structure this evening, and we're expecting it to bring some big impacts to Puerto Rico overnight tonight into tomorrow. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the impacts potentially expected, and then we're going to talk about the future of Fiona. Could it become a major hurricane, and will it affect anybody else after Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic? We'll give you a big update on that. Also, stay tuned towards the very end of the video. We're going to talk about what the weather pattern looks like next week, because there could be some it could be really hot, and then it could get kind of chilly for certain areas. There's some model runs that are showing a pretty powerful cold front right after a pretty big time warm up next week. I mean, I'm talking about mid upper 90s for certain areas in the south. So we're going to talk about that also. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. It really goes a long way of getting these videos out there, and it gets to a lot more people who need to know what's going on with the weather, especially when we have situations like this, like we have in the Caribbean right now. So hit me up on Twitter. Great way to follow along. If you notice, I'm a little bit more red in this video compared to this morning's video. It's because I got a little sunburnt here at the South Carolina-Georgia game. I went to the game this afternoon, watched my team get absolutely throttled by the Bulldogs. So it was painful to watch, but I'm a big football guy, and I sit through the entire game, and I am a true fan. So I got burnt for it. But anyways, we're here to talk about weather. If you guys got anything that I can pray about, pray over, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. And we're praying for you folks in Puerto Rico. And if you're tuning in this evening for it, we're going to try to break this down as efficiently as possible, right? So we're going to try to figure this out. So let's take a look at Fiona right now. As of the 5 p.m. update, we got the worst luck with every time I drop a video, there's another update like 10 to 30 minutes later. So 5 p.m. update is a 60 mile per hour tropical storm, but it's gaining a better structure this evening. So there's not a lot under the hood, but we're going to talk about a couple things and what that means. But this is water vapor loop. Actually, looking at this, you would say that it doesn't look quite as intense as it did this morning. And maybe it's not, but the thing is this is the developing more an intact area of circulation. Right into here, you can really see it, and you can really see it on radar, which we're about to show. It has that nice anticyclonic flow. You see how you have the initial circulation right here, and then you see how the clouds go in the opposite direction as the actual circulation of the tropical storm. That is what we call an anticyclonic flow, or basically an outflow, or a ULAC for short. Basically, think of it as well above this storm, talking 40,000 feet. You got wind direction moving in the opposite direction, and what this does is it pushes air out from the middle of the storm, allows us more air to rise. Therefore, you can get a better structure, more convection, which is those showers and storms. But it's still dealing with some westerly shear, so the actual surface load to this is still kind of being affected. So there's still kind of two areas that have kind of a minimum low pressure to this, and the GFS likes the idea of this northern area becoming dominant and then becoming a hurricane very quickly, sometime in the next 6 hours, and then going right into Puerto Rico. The European's a little bit weaker, therefore it latches on kind of to that southern vortex and moves a little bit further to the west and potentially threatens more so the Dominican Republic, but still hits Puerto Rico pretty hard. So latest update, like I said, 60 mile per hour storm. It's now moving west-northwest at about 9 miles per hour, but you got hurricane warnings up for the entire area of Puerto Rico. You got hurricane watches still up, including the tropical storm warnings up for the eastern areas of the Dominican Republic. But Puerto Rico, I think, is going to get hit hard tonight. So you folks need to hunker down. Y'all have seen some devastating storms. I don't think this is going to be catastrophic by any means, but I think you're going to have hurricane conditions developing here in the overnight hours into tomorrow morning, and that's why you got those hurricane warnings up. You see that H right on top of areas of Puerto Rico? Now, this could deviate a little far south and follow the Euro or GFS, but the National Hurricane Center is doing kind of like right down the middle, almost favoring more so the GFS, but you got the H right over Puerto Rico for 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. So this is expected to be a hurricane. Whether it's an 80 mile per hour hurricane, 90 mile per hour hurricane, don't focus too much on that. Just know there's some pretty impactful conditions moving in. In fact, let's look at the radar. Hopefully I got it in motion. I do. Puerto Rico right here. Here, I mean, you can see it on radar. You can see it just southeast of Puerto Rico. This is an intense circulation. You got a very warm eye, a very broad eye. It's not very tight. You really need a tight circulation to really symbolize this is really strengthening. But there is a chance, even though it looks very close, and you know, technically it is pretty close. Hopefully I got this on. I mean, that's the radar beam. Let's see if I can get this right on the fly here. I cannot here. So we're not going to try to bother with it. Yeah, that's the height beam. So anyways, it's pretty close to Puerto Rico here, but it's still moving at 9 miles per hour. So it's going to take a while for this to eventually work its way to Puerto Rico. Is it going to take this route, or is it going to go more so over here? Or, you know, could it go over here? It's still a big question. The GFS has it going right over Puerto Rico as a sub 990 millibar low pressure storm, which would be a hurricane. But here it is. The circulation's right here. You can see it on radar. And this is the area right here that you want to watch out for. You see this? This is technically your outer wall of this circulation. Even though this is still a mid-grade tropical storm, this is where your worst conditions are going to be. So it remains to be seen whether this is going to, whether this is going to work its way into Puerto Rico. If it does, you're going to have tropical storm to hurricane force winds, pushing, 65 to maybe 80 miles per hour, maybe even more. This could, I'm not going to say rapidly intensify, but intensify pretty quickly over the next, I would say, 6 to 12 hours. So latest full mission, hurricane mission through this storm. You notice there's nothing substantial wind-wise. Most of the worst conditions are on the northeast part of the storm. The weaker part of the storm is certainly on this part of the storm. But so it's not good news that the stronger part of the storm is on this part of the storm, because this is the part of the storm. I've said storm about 18 times in the last 30 seconds. Is the part of the storm that's going to move over Puerto Rico, most likely. But it's not finding a very strong storm, only 1,003 millibar low pressure. But you notice there's like dual minimum low pressures. You got one on this northern vortice, if you will, and then one on this kind of southern vortice. So the GFS likes this one becoming more dominant. The European maybe so this one. So what surface low is going to become dominant? You still got that one surface low. But you still got a developing tropical storm. But strongest winds found on the northeast quadrant of this tropical storm. Those orange flags, that's 50 to 55, maybe a 60 knot wind gust in there. That's pushing about 55 to 65 miles per hour in miles per hour readings. So we'll watch this. But this is, like I said, this is some nasty conditions are moving towards Puerto Rico. Here we go. Here, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic. Latest GFS has this moving right over Puerto Rico. And let's see if we can get a better look at this hurricane models. I'm doing this on the fly, guys, so forgive me. And no, it is not loaded yet. So let's go back to the Western Atlantic here. So it hasn't loaded yet. I wanted to get a closer look. But latest GFS has a landfalling 986 millibar low pressure hurricane making landfall in Puerto Rico tomorrow morning. This would bring hurricane conditions, and this would pack a punch, especially if it continues to move slow. I mean, the conditions aloft, the wind pattern, like I said, anticyclonic flow overhead promotes strengthening. So the conditions in the upper levels of the atmosphere is becoming much better for a strengthening system. And so this is going to move here, move over Puerto Rico, might weaken a little bit. And then this is when it has a chance to become a major hurricane. The low pressure, the millibars begin to drop. At this point, as early as Monday afternoon, you might have a major hurricane just north of the Dominican Republic. But the good news is it does not move into the Bahamas. Instead, it heads north as a very strong system and flirts with Bermuda. Doesn't make direct impact, but it gets into a sub 950 millibar low pressure storm. That's probably around a category 4 hurricane, major hurricane status. And then by the end of this coming work week, it heads on out to sea. Doesn't bother anybody. We're still watching, of course, you folks up here in Canada, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. But it doesn't look like the latest run has it affecting you guys. As you can tell right here, it's heading out Nova Scotia right here, and this heads on out to sea. Latest European model. What does this show? Well, it likes the idea of maybe this kind of southern piece of energy becoming more dominant. Therefore, it misses making a direct landfall right over Puerto Rico. If it does, it'll be on the western part of the island. Maybe it's still a tropical storm, still a weaker system in general from the European. And then it kind of drifts in between Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. Maybe makes a landfall again, maybe dual landfalls in the far eastern areas of the Dominican Republic. Maybe as a hurricane, saying sub 990 millibar low pressure storm. That's a borderline category 1 hurricane. Makes landfall, might weaken. And then the European, much slower developing system. We get into Tuesday morning, sub 980 millibar low pressure. This is probably a category 2 hurricane at this point. Inches it a little bit further west than the GFS, which always has done this because it's always taken that more west-northwest path in the short term. But the European still has a substantial hurricane. But the good news is most model guidance over the last 48 hours, so you can certainly call this a trend now, is not affecting the southeast. It's really good news for the U.S. But, Puerto Rico is going to get hit hard tonight. But we still got to watch Bermuda. European has a major hurricane, also a sub 950 millibar hurricane, going north of Bermuda. And then if we take a more broader look at what's going on in the North Atlantic, the latest Euro was kind of scary, but look at this, sub 940 hurricane. This is pushing category 4, maybe category 5 status. And unfortunately, the latest European wants to run this right into Newfoundland for this next weekend. So about 6 to 7 days from now. So we still need to watch, you folks up in Canada, for Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. So, you guys still need to watch this because this could be one of those impactful storms. Y'all got hit by a couple last year. So y'all know about big storms and the nor'easters. So I know y'all are always prepared up there. And I know I got a few people that listen in for my videos. Be prepared because the GFS showed it hitting Nova Scotia, a few runs ago. Now the European is showing it affecting both of y'all next weekend. So it's just something we need to watch for now. So latest HWRF model. I have not shown this much, and there's a reason I don't show it much because normally it has wild swings, even worse than the GFS, back and forth. But I'm showing it to you guys because it's a closer look at what's going on. Puerto Rico. This is what the predicted radar could be. Here we go. We're moving here in time. I like the latest, this latest model though. It doesn't substantially strengthen this. We're getting into Sunday morning. Has a sub 990 millibar low pressure. This would indicate that this is going to strengthen big time overnight. I can't stress that enough. There is a possibility that this could strengthen substantially overnight. It's moving towards Puerto Rico, makes a landfall somewhere on the southern side of the island as a hurricane, a category 1 hurricane, and nasty rain bands moving through all Sunday morning. Continues to move over the island. Conditions should get better by Monday, and it doesn't really affect Dominican Republic too much, but it's going to hit Puerto Rico, and then the latest one really, continues the same idea as the European and the GFS. This is going to become a substantial, maybe our first major hurricane of the Atlantic hurricane season. So the good news is most ensembles, guys, even the GFS ensembles, have this going out to sea now. So I don't think we're going to have to worry in Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, nobody. I really don't. But we still need to keep our eye, like I said, on Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. So expected rain in Puerto Rico, anywhere from as little as 4 inches of rain to as much as 1.5 feet of rain, guys. So this is going to be a big rain event for you guys. There's some higher elevations. You're going to have mudslides, rock slides. Please be prepared for this, especially as this band right here makes its way. And there's going to be a lot of strong winds with this also. This band's going to make its way here in the next several hours, and it's going to go downhill very quickly. So please be aware and be prepared for hurricane-type conditions in Puerto Rico. So what's driving this, and we'll talk about this quick because I've talked about it multiple times in videos, but what's pushing this is the subtropical ridge. It's weak ridging. So it's weakening right now. So there's not much. That's why it's going to kind of slow down, and that's why it's slowing down right now. It's because there's a lack of a steering current. This kind of subtropical ridge gets beat down by this little trough right here. So there's not really much in the way of anything steering this, but this finds that weakness of this big trough that we're about to talk about, and it's picked up by that trough, and then it gets maybe slingshot towards areas of Canada. We'll watch that, but pretty easy escape route, and not much to it. Pretty easy steering currents. So let's talk about the big heat first. Guys, I'm going to start this by talking about Tuesday afternoon, September 20th, into the first actual day of fall, which is the 21st. So look at this big heat. Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, everybody in the deep south getting into the 90s. You finally start to lose the nice air mass that we've just dominated for the last 5 days across the eastern U.S. And then look, but I want you to keep your eyes on this area right here. As we're getting into Wednesday, high temperatures, possible high temperatures, boiling in the south, in the mid-south, very hot. But look at this. In the same areas that were in the 80s and 90s, might go from one day you're in those 80s and 90s to the next day, Wednesday, only in the 50s and 60s. This looks to be one of those powerful cold fronts that really could make a substantial difference from day to day. I've been watching this for about 4 or 5 days now. Haven't talked about it much. I mentioned it very briefly about a week ago that there could be a big cold front towards the 3rd or 4th week of September. And here it is. We're still not very confident on how it's going to dig, and how substantial this fall air can be. But guys, let's just make it through this coming week. It's going to be very hot for a lot of people, especially if you're in the south. This is getting close to 100 degrees. I think some areas could break some records. Even in my neck of the woods, getting into the mid-90s. And then we're getting, look at this front. And I'm looking at temperatures. These aren't dew points, obviously. This is such a drastic change with this cold front. You can actually look at dew points here. You're getting into Thursday. Look at the air mass. All of a sudden, you're waking up into the 50s, maybe some 40s in the Ohio Valley. And then you're getting into Thursday afternoon. Very hot day. But look, the cold front is digging. Now, all of a sudden, for Thursday, this coming Thursday, only highs in the 70s, 60s. This is your real fall air mass. And one more hot day for the deep south, and then here comes the cold front just in time for your weekend next weekend. Cold front moves through overnight, if the European is correct. And then we get into your highs for Friday potentially only in the 70s in the deep south after, taking it to the chin with the heat. And here comes this beautiful air mass just in time for the weekend. 50s deep down into the Carolinas, into Georgia, all the way to the Panhandle. And this looks almost chilly for certain areas of the mountains. And then this air mass dominates the pattern. And then it looks like it warms up, and then maybe another cold front comes. So the GFS is starting to bite on this a little bit more. The Canadian is certainly biting on this. And just knowing that there could be a potentially big cold front after this heat wave, it helps me to get through it. I don't know about you guys, but don't plant your mums if you're in the south. Don't plant any of those fall flowers. I'm telling you, I speak from experience. Those mums do not like temperatures in the 90s, guys. I remember one year I went to Lowe's and I bought like $50 in mums. I love mums. They're beautiful flowers in the fall. Really set the tone to your landscaping outside. I bought them, set them on my porch, and then I don't know why I thought that it just wasn't going to get hot again in the south, and it was only September 2nd. Of course, we got, big time heat, and in 2 weeks, the mums were completely fried. So I would wait until next weekend before you kind of bring those, buy those fall mums across the south. I have no idea why I'm talking a ton about mums. But anyways, you guys have a blessed day, a blessed night, a great rest of your weekend. I'll have you an update in the morning. Stay safe down there in Puerto Rico, guys, in the Dominican Republic, and just hunker down. You guys have been this before. Y'all are tough. And I'm praying for you guys, hoping the best for you guys. But God bless all y'all. Have a great night. Stay safe.